Happy hump day, y'all strangers. Get in here. If you missed the members live yesterday, it was a ton of fun. Look at Shep already in the hump day spirit. He's got his pink on. Way to go. If you missed it, there's a members link. Link. You're in good hands here. Don't worry. It was a ton of fun. Woo, we have a lot going on today. A lot. This situation with crazy ass Ruby, I think, is only going to get crazier. We'll get more into that in a minute. First, let's tell everybody good morning, happy hump day, and do we have our pink on? Because I got something for you.
Oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-hoo!
It is hump day. And as you see, I opened the show with, "We wish you a Merry Christmas." Well, that's to everybody except for a select few that we talk about on this channel. For this show, we wish everybody a Merry Christmas except for Ruby, Jody, a few of their friends. I'm going to say Kevin. I'm going to go ahead and throw old Kevin in there because I think he failed these kids horribly. A few social workers that I think should have paid more attention the numerous times they were called to the Franke home. We don't wish them a Merry Christmas. And they can't sit with us. They don't wear pink on Wednesday. And even if they did, they'd be eaten by themselves in the bathroom. We wear pink. And this is our official on Wednesdays. We wear pink CLL shirt. Hit me up, send me an email, tell me your size, tell me your color. Where to send it would help as well. And I will get you hooked up. Now, here's a little bit of Christmas cheer. This has been floating around Facebook, and I think it is just adorable. Someone added a Christmas tree in front of their trail cam, and here are the photos. Look at how cute that is. That is so cute. I would sit there and watch the trail cam all day. Hell, it's bad enough I have to watch birds all day. Carly with an eye said, I may need that shirt. Hit me up, girlfriend. Hit me up. I saw someone asked about Aggie. She's doing a lot better. She called into the members show yesterday. I think she'll probably be in the hospital a little longer, but she certainly sounds much, much better than she did before. A couple of people were asking if OJ is going to behave today. As you know, we've been working on this positive reinforcement therapy, and this is how it went this morning. You see, you keep messing with that lamp, and I like that lamp. Yeah, you are so cute, my kitty. Can you leave Mama's stuff alone? Thank you to my kitty. All right, so it's starting to work. Just a little bit of positive reinforcement, and my kitty stops doing bad things, at least while I'm looking. Okay, let's get to some of the comments from the last show that we did about the nastiness that is Ruby, Jody, a few of their friends, and I got to throw Kevin in there. I'm still shocked, unless he's really, really cooperating behind the scenes, that there's no charges on him yet. So let's look at some comments. Extra AF said, I didn't really delve into this case when it came up, and I missed your other show. I don't know these women, but I get a strong sense that something untoward was going on with that relationship. I agree. She says Ruby pushed her husband out of the picture and kept Jody around. Jody has a checkered past with sexual undertones. Ruby's accused one of her children of abuse. This is going to get worse. Well, you are quite the prophet, Extra AF. because it did get worse. You see, what came out a few days ago is disturbing as hell and beyond what we could imagine. It is so Lori Vallow trying to convince these kids that they're evil and possessed. Had that little boy not escaped, I'm telling you what, him and his sister, maybe just a sister, would be in a shallow grave somewhere. I'm telling you, he saved himself. He saved his sister. And I agree. I think with this relationship between Ruby and Jody, there was something way more going on than just their podcast, which was disturbing as hell. They're sadists. Exactly, Rebecca. Sadists. Okay, next comment. Gil Sharp. And I don't know where Gil's been. Come back, Gil. Gil said, great stream as always. Well, thank you. Watching the chat wins was incredibly sickening. Thanks, Brooks, for bringing these disturbing, money-grabbing monsters to the forefront. Incredibly scary. What is this behavior teaching these poor children? More narcissistic parents. And this is what she was referring to. This is the Chatwins. And they put their kids on YouTube all the time.
Oh, I think I'm going into labor.
That's not funny. Come here, give me daddy hug.
Big Mama's going into labor.
When the song come on, let me see you get gone. Baby mamas, this your song. Been pregnant for way too long. Now tell the DJ turn it on.
If she a baby mama,
Go ahead.
she gon' do that baby mama.
Work.
She gon' put it on you. She gon' do that baby mama. Drop
Drop
it,
it down, drop it down, down low.
drop,
Drop it down, drop it down, down low.
drop,
Drop it down, drop it down, down low. Do the baby mama when I step out on the floor. 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, 4. Hit the baby mama when I'm stepping through the door. Yeah, I'm pregnant, but I got an ill flow. Tryna make some money, buy some huggies from the store. S to the T-A, double R-K, to the E-I-S-H-A. And I don't play, doing my way. Preggo, but I'm still doing moves like Beyonce. Yeah, I said I'm pregnant, get the child support and pay my rent. Pay my rent, your opinion is irrelevant, cause I'm a baby mama, I can do just what I want to turn up.
If she a baby mama, she gon' do that baby mama.
Work.
She gon' put it on you. She gon' do that baby mama. Drop
it down, drop it down, down low.
Drop
it down, drop it down, down low.
drop
it down, drop it down, down low. Do the baby mama when I step out on the floor. Baby bottle, I need a baby bottle. Baby daddy broke, better hope he hit the lotto. Yeah, my belly big, but I'm looking like a model. See me in the club and I'm going full throttle. Twerk right, twerk left. Take a break, cause I'm out of breath.
Okay, so that's just a refresher about the Chatwins, disturbing as hell. Good morning, Trev. I see you're awake now. Hey, Kiki, what up? Jules is the only one dancing. Jules, did you like that song? Did you like that video? Are you and your husband going to make a video like that? Woo! Crazy, crazy. Back to the comments. The Wheels on the Bus. Again, where you been, Wheels on the Bus? Come back. Said, in my opinion, Kevin is a spineless twerp. Get involved, Kevin. They are your kids too. Where's the love and connection? Take some responsibility. And Ruby is their mom. No excuse. You don't do what some random says and torture your children for what reason? And it's worse. It is worse than we even imagined. She's horrible. And Jody, who would give someone that much power? She talks crap, but in riddles. Yeah, she's like a Jody Sue, only with a high school education. She uses big words while not making a bit of sense. They all belong in jail. Can we get an amen? Absolutely spot on. Axeman Gang said the blame belongs to Ruby, Jody, and Kevin. It also partially belongs to CPS and the police due to not following up on the reports better. I can agree with that. I can definitely agree with that. I think there's a lot of blame to go around. And funny how Ruby turned on Jody real quick. Real quick. Funny how Kevin turned on Ruby. They're going through the big D. And I don't mean Dallas. He's divorcing her. And she will, according to CBS News, be testifying against Jody. Now, considering she took a plea agreement, I think over the next few months, they're going to be bargaining for a lesser sentence. We'll talk about that in a minute. I hate to tell old Jody, but she doesn't have a snowball's chance in Candace's pants of getting out of this. No. No prayer at all. Now, before the arrest, the plea agreement, all of that, it was already disturbing. And people were definitely on to what was going on. This is some clips from their show called 8 Passengers. I'm going to fix that for them, though. It's not 8 passengers. It's 6 prisoners. That's what it is. 6 prisoners.
My eyes. Make it down, down.
Oh, are you? Eve, did you kiss him, or Boston? Did you kiss her? Yippee.
I kiss you. I kiss you.
Are you kissing Boston?
She's standing there filming, encouraging this. She's encouraging this for, as a lot of YouTubians say, clicks and views.
I think Boston went in for that one. I think I had to watch you two. What do you think of that?
Okay, I think that's
I don't think you should go in there. Eve, I don't think you should go in there. Eve, I don't think you should.
Instead of stopping the child so she doesn't run into the display shelf in the store, she continues to film.
You go in there. Sorry. Here, let go of the gas. Let go of the gas.
way too big.
Russell, no. On this pedal.
Oh, I don't want to do it.
Why not?
You don't want a bike?
I do want a bike, but I want a different bike. Russell.
Well, why? What's wrong with this one?
It's big for me.
This poor kid has been through hell. There he is crying. He doesn't want that bike. It's too big for him. He's on the sidewalk. He doesn't have any elbow pads on, knee pads, a helmet. Not that such a thing like that existed in my day, but it's available for safety reasons now. He's in tears. In my opinion, this little boy had it the worst out of all of them.
Well, it's not too big for you, Russell.
Yeah, it is. I can barely put my feet on the ground.
You're gonna go into it. 'Cause you're gonna...
No, I'm not.
You gotta keep pedaling, Russell.
As traffic's coming down the street.
We'll find a smaller one for you, all right? It's okay if you fell down and cracked.
Program where he's going to spend the next 8 to 10 weeks living in the
Anasazi Desert.
yeah, the desert mountains of Arizona, and he'll be out. So you're probably wondering, what did Chad do? Okay, we're not even going to entertain that stuff, but
You are entertaining it, Kevin. You're putting him out in the Arizona wilderness to fix his behavior. And you're trying to act all innocent, like you did not know this abuse was going on. You took part in it and you facilitated it. I have a feeling at one time you were probably Jody's little client. The project might have started with you.
it's an accumulation of things over years, well before we ever started YouTubing or well before we ever got into social media. And it's reached, the idea is with wilderness therapy is if you can survive with these peers in the wilderness with nothing more than the clothes on your back and a couple of field supplies, then there's nothing in this world that you can't tackle.
Julie has asked that we not show her face. Do you want to tell us what happened? I think I may have already explained it. Her face looks very sore on one side of her face. It's pretty rough, pretty swollen, very sad. I don't want you to think you can't have a birthday party this week. I don't want our relationship.
So obviously she had an accident. And now they're acting like she may or may not have a birthday party because it sounded like a little bit of doubt in her voice. Now, the little girl is saying she doesn't want her face shown, which I would think that would be kind of an all-encompassing statement. Like, don't tell him what happened to my face. Don't show the back of my head. Just let me lay here. Don't film me.
Relationship to be an untrusting relationship.
Sunflower still grows at night, waiting for a minute till the sun sinks.
Sickening. Sickening. He looks so uncomfortable. Just so, get me out of here. And everything's for the camera. Now, this is them putting on their best face. I've talked about this with other cases. This is them trying to impress everybody. This is their best face. Imagine what was going on. Well, we don't have to imagine anymore when that camera was off. Because as much as they tried to look like the tough love parents, the compassion and the love part of tough love was not coming through. Stacy, thank you for the super sticker. Thank you. And thank you, Kat, for the super sticker. And do my eyes deceive me? Our friend Britt, is today Britt's birthday? Let's take a second and tell our very good friend Britt, happy birthday. And many more to you, our wonderful, wonderful friend, Britt. V. Oakley said, happy birthday to you. Sorry, I put the wrong comment up, but that was absolutely happy birthday. Beth, said there are so many family channels that have ended up being the worst people. Yeah, and the list is growing. This is only one example. We have the Duggars. What was that? John and Kate +8. There's many. I wonder how those octuplets are doing. Didn't they have a show for a while? There's a lot of them. And not just the ones that have small children on them, just the ones that exploit their own family. It's insane. All right, so we saw a little taste of what was going on before allegations, charges, arrest, and pending imprisonment. Although I will say, Jody, Ruby, I've showed this on a couple of other shows. You do have a little something to look forward to because it is the holiday season, which means it's hooch season in prison. You know, for some homemade Christmas cheer, straight out of the toilet. This batch was found at the Cummings unit. It's 3 gallons of alcohol in the making. If you're ever offered a glass of prison hooch, we suggest you decline. Hooch is terrible, but some inmates, Ruby, Jody, you would fit into this. Some inmates will slam it down, get drunk, and then really sick. You can bet that we'll find more before Santa arrives. So there's a little Christmas cheer for you. And oh my gosh, Alice, thank you so much. And by the way, your hair is gorgeous. Your hair is gorgeous. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much. Okay, let's look at this. This is when the son, you know who I'm talking about, climbed out the window for help. And again, just my opinion, had he not escaped, I think we would have been looking at a Vallow situation. Because Ruby was convinced by Jody that the children were evil, possessed, and he escaped.
A controversial YouTube star out of Ivins has been arrested and charged with aggravated child abuse. Police were called after a neighbor reported a child escaped through the window to get help, which led to the arrest of the child's mother, Ruby Franke.
Fox 13 News reporter Lucy Nelson has the details on the alarming conditions they say the children were found in.
Without bail and behind bars sits a woman who once freely roamed around her home, filming her family in front of up to 2.3 million subscribers. Ruby Franke, known as a momfluencer, documented the life of her husband and 6 children in southern Utah in her YouTube channel, 8 Passengers, which was taken down earlier.
6 prisoners. 6 prisoners is what I call it. 6 very neglected and abused children. They might have nice clothes. They might have a nice house. But they, very short of the mark.
This year. Come Wednesday, she resurfaced in the public eye when one of her children escaped through a window and knocked on a neighbor's door, requesting food and water. I got a hold of the police statement, which I'm holding right here. It says when the child arrived at the neighbor's home, the child had duct tape around his wrists and ankles. The neighbor immediately called police, and officers say when they arrived, that child had open wounds and was so malnourished, they immediately transported him to the hospital. Officers would later find another child in the same home, that home belonging to Frank's business partner, Jody Hildebrandt, who had a parent counseling service called Connections. She was arrested as well.
90% of the time when a child is hurt, it's by someone that they know and love.
Director of Prevent Child Abuse Utah, Laurie Ann Thorpe, says it's a tough reality to realize that abusers are often relatives or someone close to a family. Frank's oldest daughter, Sherry Franke, who is 20 years old, posted to her public Instagram today a photo of police with the caption, "Finally." She added another story saying, "Me and my family are so glad justice is being served. We've been trying to tell the police and CPS for years about this, and so glad they finally decided to step up."
That is so disturbing that she posted that. And who is up here who grabbed the link? None other than our friend Trevor. What do you think about all this, Trevor?
Well, good morning. Happy Hump Day.
Happy day.
absolutely a mess and just a tragedy. And I'm so glad that it was caught when it was, because like you said, it was only going to get worse. And with this cult-like mindset that she's got, it was in any situation, abuse escalates. And it seems to have here as well. And it was just going to keep escalating. So I'm thankful that those children were safe while they could be.
And I saw the documents that you posted in Discord. That was a tough read, and it was really hard to get through because we already know that it's bad. But when it's pen to paper and you're reading what these children went through, it's devastating.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people wonder why they even gave her the deal. I think they just capitalized on who was going to take a deal. Because it says in there she even signed off and she agreed to serve a prison sentence. The sentencing isn't yet, obviously, they don't know what it is, but she agreed in there and signed off that she would be willing to, that she is agreeing to serve a prison sentence. And I think out of the two, it was whoever was going to do that. And then you go at the other one, because it takes one less person you have to prosecute. She's prosecuted herself now. And then now you take that and go after the second person.
And she's going to, according to CBS News, she's going to testify against Jody. It seems to me that we have a bit of a blame game going on here. Now she's taking her prison sentence. Way to go, Ruby. You had no choice.
Yeah.
I do think that between now and sentencing on February 20th, there's going to be some wheeling and dealing going on. Have her serve them concurrently or shave this off, because they've already dropped 2 charges. But still, I mean, if the judge throws it at her, she's looking at 60 years from what I read.
Yeah. And it's all going to come down to what she gives. It's give and take in these situations. The prosecution has no reason to do anything nice for her, and neither does the court. But if they can give her, if she can give them something, which is information and testimony against Jody, then they will give, good word to the court that she should have, concurrent sentences, or that she should get the lower amount they'll suggest, because the prosecution will suggest a sentence, not that the judge has to take it, but it goes a decent way into figuring it out. So they will do that based on what she gives. If she just shuts up and doesn't say anything, well, then she could look at the max anyway.
And I think it's safe to say that this judge isn't going to do any kind of backwoods deal like what happened with Brandon Lawson.
No, she's going to have to give something if she's going to get on the lower end of the 1 to 15 on the charges, or she'll be looking closer to the 15 if not.
Mm-hmm. And odds are she's probably going to serve 15 years and walk. Honestly, that's what I'm guessing. But I don't know. There is a lot of focus on this case, and the judge may not want to deal with it. He might say, hey, thanks for saving us some court time. Thanks for telling us about Jody. I'm wondering if there are other victims, and that's what's going to be her testimony about Jody. Because just that Jody took her down the wrong moral path isn't going to cut the mustard.
No, they must know or think that she has some real legitimate information that could solidify their case against Jody. If not, they wouldn't even try with this. They'd take them both to trial and put them both away for even longer. But they must think that she's got, or know that she's got some information that could really help them, solidify a trial, which is what you want as a prosecution. You don't want to let these people walk. So if you can make a super solid case and just make sure there's no doubt in a jury, and they go into that room and walk out with the same idea they walked into that room with, then, you've done your job and you get these abusers put away.
100%. 100%. And Mr. J. Quinn, welcome back to the family. It looks like Stacy gifted a Crime Lines and Lies membership. Thank you, Stacy. And I hope Ruby understands how it works in the prison. You see, Ruby, she might be ugly on the inside, but she is an attractive lady. She's a pretty woman. Like I said, heart like a lump of coal. She's a shit human being, but Big Bertha's going to tear her up. I don't think she understands what's going to happen. It's not going to be all hugs and cuddles like her last female relationship. I know that's an image you did not want, Trevor. But it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And these aren't exactly women that shower every day, Ruby. They get a little sliver of soap and a couple of squirts of water, and that's about it. Enjoy.
Glad they finally decided to step up. Kids are safe, but there's a long road ahead. Please keep them in your prayers and also respect their privacy.
I think it's really important to understand that children on average will disclose abuse 3 times before they get help or before they're believed. So it's really on us as adults who may be receiving this information to trust that a child is not making this up.
As of now, 4 children have been taken into custody of Child and Family Services. In Salt Lake City, Lucy Nelson, Fox 13 News, Utah.
And she pled guilty to those 4 charges. 2 were dropped, but still, we're looking at serious prison time.
Most of all, I just hope she's away long enough that all the kids can be adults by the time she's out.
Well, that's what I'm hoping too, and I'm hoping there is a permanent order, even when they're adults, for her to have 0 contact with them. 0.
Yeah, and see, once they're adults, if she's, harassing them or whatever, that then, the law looks at it differently because it's no longer, your minor child that you're trying to get in touch with, you're harassing an adult.
And believe it or not, that's a stiffer penalty.
Yeah, and with this now on the plate, they will not take very kindly to her getting out and trying that.
Well, Kevin will probably be remarried in the next year. I wouldn't doubt it. Because I know some people are like, oh, when she gets out, they're going to get back together. Nah. I think old Kevin's going to be, he's got to have somebody washing his drawers soon. He's probably going to have more kids. Yeah. Imagine that. Absolutely blows my mind what she did. What do you think about her telling the kids that they're evil and possessed and would give them these outlandish chores to do?
She's insane. And like I was saying to Chad earlier, I watched her channel long ago. She'd been doing it forever. I was much younger and I watched it on YouTube. And she was always just so weird, the way that her punishments and the way she would just, basically trash her kids on camera. I get a lot of people don't like the whole family vlogging community because it's not real. You get a lot of the happy moments. You get to see them go to the park. You get to see them go to the fair. Happy times, baking cookies, all this stuff. But some things don't belong online. You post a picture with your husband, but you're not going to post on Facebook every time you guys argue. Not because you don't argue, but because some things don't belong online. And I think she crossed that line so far with what didn't belong online by putting it there.
Well, and we could clearly see from those clips, there were things that were set up for content. She's the daisy cow of the family vloggers. She's holding the camera as the little girl is driving into a store display. Oh, don't do that. Don't do that. Okay, you probably had to pick all that up, maybe pay for some items. I don't know. But you got it on camera, didn't you? How about the bicycle incident? Or telling all of their subscribers, which was over 3 million, about how they're sending the son down to the wilderness of Arizona because of things he had been doing around the house. Kevin was in on that, but Kevin's trying to act like Mr. Innocent. What are your thoughts on Kevin, Trev?
Oh, I think he should be in prison. There's no way he should get away with any of this. He lived there, and not only did he live there, he participated in this.
Yes, he did.
He did not hide in another room every time that she did something crazy. They went in on this together. They were married. He's their father, and he did not protect them. If he's so innocent, then where was he when she was doing all this? If he wasn't involved, he should have stopped it. You can't do both. You can't be, well, I wasn't involved, but I didn't stop it. Okay, then you were involved. One or the other. You would have stopped it if you weren't involved, if you actually cared about those kids. He should be getting hit with the same charges, and he should be in prison.
Oh, I think so too, because it's very telling that when they rescued the children, they didn't send the children to Kevin. That would be the first person they would send them to, their father. Why would they not do that?
And you know what? Just the irony of that part is they've got this very, what they like to call, what they think is very just like a strict religious mindset on things. I think it goes beyond that. I think they're crazy. but that's where they think they fall in line in the world. So in that mindset, then the father is they're the protector, the provider, all these things, right? And when they're putting themselves in this mold, but yet he did the exact opposite and completely failed his children. He did not protect them one bit. And for him to be the protector, he did quite the opposite. He allowed this abuse to escalate and participated in it until the point that this horrific 911 call went through and these children were saved. But if this didn't happen, who's to say that we don't hear about this as missing children and then hear about them as found deceased? I'm thankful it's not, but you can't tell me that wasn't a possibility if this kept escalating.
Oh, it was escalating. He tried to escape once, and look what she did to confine him. He escaped again. I think he realized that the longer he was around there, he's got quite the survivor mentality, the little boy. He saved himself and he saved his siblings. And Kevin, I agree with the comment that I read earlier. On one hand, I do think he's a spineless twerp, but on the other hand, I think that he's a money grubber that kept this going because, well, let's face it, you have over 3 million subscribers to your channel. You're making some dough, okay? You are making some dough, and even a hate view is a view.
Yeah, but the day you put a penny over the well-being of your child is the day that you should never be allowed to parent ever again till the day you die.
There you go. There you go. And where's his balls? Does she keep them? Are they detachable? Are they Velcro and she keeps them in her purse and just gives them to Kevin when she feels like he needs them? Because if old DT Driver came home and I said, hey, this is Jody. Look at her in all her glory. And she's going to help run things around here. She's going to train OJ, counsel us. He'd kick her fat ass across the Arkansas River. And probably mine too.
Oh, he's got no spine. And if he had a spine, he would have took up for his kids. He's got none. He's not a man. He's the farthest from it. Anyone who can abuse their child, abuse a woman, whatever, you're the farthest from a man. And that's what he did here. He allowed his children to be neglected and abused and participated in it. He is not a man. Far from it, Kevin.
He knew where his children were, and he knew all about Jody. I know you're not married, Trev, but, could you imagine coming home from a hard day of work and Jody sitting there talking about how you should run your life and raise your children?
I hope the car's still running because see ya.
And I'm taking the kids with me.
Yeah.
Let's get to the 911 call, and then we're going to start talking about the plea agreement. And by the way, I want to say welcome back to our amazing, beautiful diva of a woman. I'm proud to call my friend Tiffany. She is back. Her surgery is over, and we have missed her tremendously. She still needs our prayers. She still needs our thoughts, or however you do it. So let's send out some love to Tiff. Glad you're back and on the mend, Tiffany. You are a strong woman. She had a horrible accident a couple of years ago, and it has been one surgery after another. And God bless her. She's got the mental strength to get through and a high pain tolerance. I don't know how she does it. Honey Elder really appreciated what you said, Trev. She said, hope the car is still running. Peace, dude.
I'm telling you, we got car seats. They better be latched up because we're getting out of there.
Yeah, you and Jody have a good time. Have at it. All right. Little trigger warning because this 911 call is hard to listen to. But it is important in retrospect.
I think he's been detained. He's obviously covered in wounds.
We're taking a closer look at the case of Ruby Franke. The YouTuber mom now accused of child abuse. For the first time, we're hearing the chilling 911 call and emergency radio communications after Franke's son escaped from her business partner's home and was found emaciated with open wounds.
He asked us to call the police. So he's very afraid.
That 911 call came in just before 11 a.m. on August 30th. A neighbor.
Not to cross cases, and I'm probably stepping in it, but that's okay. It's a live show. Here he is. He escapes. Imagine how scared he was. Because had he been caught, God only knows what those two would have done to him. So he's brave enough to escape. He goes to a total stranger. I don't know how well he knew the neighbor. They clearly see how emaciated, abused, neglected he was, and he asked them to call the police. So in my opinion, people talk about survivor's guilt a lot. That tells me even more that Dylan in the Idaho 4 case has no excuse not to call 911.
Yeah. And I don't know if people understand how hard it is for a kid, even if they have been abused, to do that, to come forward, and not only come forward, but to ask for someone to say, call the police on my mom, is not something that even kids who are abused will always do, because that's still their parent and that's all they know. And so there's a trauma bond, there's a bond through the trauma there that the parents are absolutely exploiting, but that the children's still attached to. So for him to be that scared and that afraid and that willing to come forward and say, call the police on my mom, is very telling on how bad it really was.
Oh, I agree. And I'm so glad you brought up the trauma bond, because when I was getting ready for the show, I went through it and I thought, and of course I was thinking about, Dylan in the Idaho 4 case, that she did not call for help. She was behind a closed door. She could have put a dresser against it. She could have crawled out the window, you name it, to get help, and she didn't do it. And here he is, a little boy. Not only does he escape, knowing in the back of his mind what would happen if he got caught, because it's happened before, and it was hell to pay. And not only did he escape, but he says, call the police. Very good point, Trev.
Neighbor in Ivins, Utah, a remote area about 4 hours south of Salt Lake City, reported a 12-year-old boy showed up at his house asking for help.
911, the address of your emergency. Tell me exactly what's happened.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help.
The caller then references problems at the neighbor's home before explaining the boy arrived looking emaciated with duct tape around his wrists and ankles.
We know there's been problems at this neighbor's house. He's emaciated, he's got tape around his legs, he's hungry, and he's thirsty.
Officials later determined the boy's mother is Ruby Franke, the YouTuber behind the 8 Passengers channel. Once boasting more than 2 million subscribers, the channel is now defunct after being terminated.
My gosh, you guys, having kids is so much fun.
On her YouTube channel, Franke documented the lives of her 6 children and husband, Kevin, recording videos about everything from home renovations to back-to-school shopping. But Franke's strict mothering tactics came under fire long before her arrest.
And my kids are literally starving. I hesitate to say this because it's going to sound like I'm like a mean barbarian, but I told the kids, I said, I'm not even going to let you eat breakfast until you get your chores done.
In the past, Franke had addressed critics, saying she wouldn't stop mothering her way.
Online who hate me, who would like to cancel me, who would like to see me either burn in hell, as I have told, or disappear off the face of the earth. And I'm not going anywhere.
But
hell, you're not. You're getting ready to get you a new roommate. Not only are you going to be drinking prison hooch with Big Bertha, I have a feeling you're going to have some other chores around the cell, Ruby, because you're the tiniest one in the jail. You're going to be the belle of the ball. I'm not going anywhere.
They should give her some prison chores, and if she doesn't do them, she doesn't get to eat.
That's what I'm talking about. Deprive her of water like she did. He got in trouble for sneaking a drink of water.
Yeah, no, food and drinking are not, that can't be an appropriate punishment. You cause so many issues that way. Outside of just not feeding your child, you could lead them to having, eating disorders. You have kids that see food as a privilege when it should be something that they're given. And it's a dangerous road to go down, and it's not something that should be used as punishment. They had plenty of money. There's things these kids have that could be taken as punishment. This wasn't a family that had nothing. They weren't eating because she was telling them they couldn't eat, not because they couldn't have the means to eat.
Or not because they already had a snack, or not because she was cooking lunch, or not because, hey, can you just wait for dinner? This was a means of psychological torture. You take someone's food and drink, it's to make them subservient, to get them to do what you want them to do, and it's sick.
But it was Franke's own son who requested 911 be called.
And he asked us to call the police. So he's very afraid. This kid has obviously been, I think he's been detained. He's obviously covered in wounds.
Now let's talk about the man that called 911 for the son. Listen to his voice. He's a grown man. He's on the brink of tears, then he's crying just by the sight of this little boy. But yet Ruby and Jody have zero emotion for what they have inflicted on these children. This man just takes a look at him and he is in tears. Imagine, how bad do you think it was? Good thing Ruby took that plea deal, because I don't think she would have survived all those pictures and the look on jurors' faces when they put it all in court, had it gone to trial.
Right, we need the cops here as soon as possible.
First responder radio communications captured the moments after this 911 call came into dispatch.
Murphy said a 12-year-old male showed up with tape around his legs Thursday asking for help, said he was afraid, asking for police. Devar, he gave the name of Russell Franke, unknown date of birth, or he did give us a date of birth, but I'm not showing any Russells in Stillman. I'll keep looking into that. The RP said he left through the porch of the neighbor's house.
First responders can then be heard discussing the boy's wounds, saying he has sores all over his body.
Does have duct tape around each ankle. He's not telling the RP why, and said that there's sores around his wrists and ankles. The RP is becoming emotional.
Then, for the first time, Ruby Franke is mentioned by name.
Sorry, the RP said that he left from a neighbor's Jody Hildebrand in Ivan's 54-year-old female. Not sure if they're related. When asking the RP's parents, have always said his mom is Ruby Franke, unknown where she lives.
First responders also mentioned Jody Hildebrand, whose home Franke's son escaped from. Franke and Hildebrand have a past relationship, collaborating on parenting videos.
Do you have an address for that, Jody? Tampa 8.
Anytime you think I want, fill in the blank, I don't care what it is, that is not love. Love is a gift that you offer because you have generated it inside yourself. And how do you generate love? Well, the only way to generate love is you use your agency to choose principles of truth.
First responders.
Let's touch on that, please. So she's explaining, anytime you say, I want, that's not love. Love is something that you generate, you give it out. Duct tape around children's appendages is not love. Depriving children of food and water is not love. And it is also okay in a relationship, whether it be parent-child, husband-wife, partner-partner, to lean on them and explain what you need. Is it not? You ought to see my Amazon wish list that I threw into DT Driver's inbox. Nothing wrong with that. Kimberly Mann said, is she in PC, Brooks? I'm not 100% sure. Now, I do know when she was in county, she was separated. But when she goes to the big house with her new girlfriend, Big Bertha, I don't know if she's going to be in PC. And, well, they don't take kindly to child abusers in the big house. What do you think, Trev? Do you think they'll be able to keep her protected?
I think they'll do their best. I say unfortunately because she should be in with everybody else, but I think they'll put her somewhere just with her being high profile. We've heard, and even in smaller cases where people who are of public stature, because of how high profile the case is, usually get protected.
Yep. And they can only do it for so long. I mean, that's the thing. She's going to have to get into a gang, make some friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or they'll bounce her around. That happens too, or they'll send them to different prisons. If an incident happens and they seem to not be safe anymore, they'll bounce them elsewhere.
Sick ass people. I mean, sick.
Then mentioned the boy's siblings, who are still back at the home.
He's also saying that there's 2 of his sisters are back at the home as well.
Officials say when they arrived to the scene, investigators went to a nearby home, finding other children in similar conditions. In all, 4 children were eventually taken to the Department of Child and Family Services.
10-4-18, 3 minutes, medical's in front of me.
Recordings capture officials arriving to the scene when they see the 12-year-old boy's condition firsthand.
Hey, 314, the wounds on his leg are pretty good. 12X511, 314, medical's going to transport him, said that his wounds are in need of immediate care.
Next, there's some confusion as first responders ask for a Rose Franke rather than Ruby Franke.
Confirming Rose Franke.
But officials quickly realize it's Ruby Franke that they're looking for.
I don't have any Rose Frankies coming back in Stillman or in Utah. I did find a Ruby Franke, which I sent to 12X11, showing an address out of Springville. However, only involvement is a traffic offense a couple days ago.
Additional first responders again comment on the boy's condition.
12X11, 314 as well. The child looks very emaciated.
Officials then discuss the next steps, deciding the boy needs medical care.
Or you want medical to hold off to transport to the hospital?
We need to get some photographs first.
10-4, we're going to have him hold here.
Yeah, if he's alert and breathing, just hang out and wait for us, please.
According to a press release, the boy's condition was, quote, so severe that they were seen by the Santa Clara Ivans EMS and transported to a local hospital. Eventually, the conversation comes back to Franke and Hildebrand over the radio.
After doing a little digging, it looks like that 27 I sent you for Ruby Franke is going to be the one that is associated with the Jody Hildebrand. They're both showing a therapist from Salt Lake and associated through social media as well.
Control 12X11. Does she have an address in Springville?
Yeah, 10-4. She's showing up in Salt Lake per her Facebook. Her and Jody both are therapists showing addresses up or locations for their work up in Salt Lake as well.
Copy, yeah. 10-4, that's going to be the mom. What's the address for that Jody Hildebrand?
Sorry, which address for Jody?
Do you have an address for her in Kansas?
Yeah, 10-4. She's just a few streets up showing the address of.
At this point, first responders search Hildebrand's home.
7 keyhole there. We're searching the house.
Both Franke and Hildebrand were arrested on August 30th and charged with 2 counts of aggravated child abuse. Those charges have since been upgraded, and now they each face 6 counts of aggravated child abuse. If convicted, that means they could spend 15 years in prison and owe a $10,000 fine. Right now, both are being held in the Washington County Jail. Reporting for Law and Crime Network, I'm Sierra Gillespie.
Woo! This has got such Turpin vibes for me. Valo vibes. Obviously, JJ and Tylee did not make it out of Lori's crazy ass. They did not survive. I really think had Jordan Turpin not escaped from her house and had Russ not escaped from his house, we would have had another Vallow situation. And the children that survived the Turpin situation, they're doing better, but they're nowhere near recovered. These are not wounds that are easily fixable.
No, these kids have been left with a life sentence.
I hate to tell Jody and Ruby, but they've got it good. You see, they're going to be watching cable TV. They're going to be eating beefaroni. They're going to have some, toilet hooch. Imagine what the kids are going through. Ruby, I found your new roommate. Look at her. She even peed her pants. Look at that. She pissed her own jumpsuit, Trev.
What a gem.
Again, 1 shower a week, not even hot water with a sliver of soap. There you go, Ruby. There you go. Enjoy. Enjoy. All right, let's get to the plea hearing. Now, we're not going to hear anything really disturbing in this, but we're going to get to that. This is more about the plea agreement.
Ms. Franke is now here.
Why is she smiling at the guard? He ain't going to date you. Come on.
Mr. Windward, we are scheduled for a waiver hearing. Is there going to be a waiver today?
There will, plus a plea agreement, Your Honor.
All right.
I'll ask the bailiff to hand you if it's been executed.
All right. Mr. Windward, you have discussed with Ms. Franke.
Navy blue coat, lavender shirt, and baby blue tie. So we already know from this outfit, Ruby, you weren't going to get prime representation. Okay? If he just had a ponytail. Trev, what do you think about this outfit?
It's if I was a lawyer, it probably wouldn't be my first choice, but
No. Your battleship was sunk the minute they assigned him. Now,
Preliminary hearing, what's involved in a preliminary hearing. She understands she has a right to a preliminary hearing on all of the charges in the case. She understands what the charges are, and she's prepared to waive a preliminary hearing in the case on all charges.
She is, and that is contained in this agreement on page 7 as well.
Very good. All right, I've been handed a plea agreement, and it appears to be signed by Ms. Franke. Ms. Franke, did you sign this agreement?
Yes,
And you did that today? When did you sign it?
on the 18th,
Okay. You've read it carefully?
every word.
every word. Sick.
Your signature represents to the court that you've read it carefully, that you understand what you've read, and that you agree to all of the terms. Is that all accurate?
Yes,
You've had sufficient time to ask questions of your counsel, to go over any questions you have. You're ready to go forward.
yes,
You don't need any more time.
I'm ready.
Ms. Franke, is anyone pressuring you to enter into this agreement?
No,
Anyone promising you anything I haven't been told about?
no,
Anything that's not in the written plea agreement?
no,
Are you under the influence of alcohol or drugs today?
no,
Is there anything today that could in any way interfere with your ability to understand the agreement, its consequences, anything?
no,
No physical condition, no medication, nothing?
no.
Any further record, counsel?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Windward, we ready to proceed?
We are ready to proceed.
All right then. Ms. Franke, how do you plead to count 1, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
To count 3, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
To count 5, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
And to count 6, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
With my deepest regret and sorrow for my family and my children, guilty.
There is a factual basis set forth in the agreement that is a stipulated factual basis, counsel.
That's correct, Your Honor. That is correct, Judge Walton.
The court finds that the factual basis is sufficient.
I don't know the woman, but I'm just not seeing any real remorse. I get that she's trying to give the appearance that she's stepping up and taking responsibility, accountability. She's sorry. She's like, pursing her lips. OJ, please get down. Get out of the camera. I can't see OJ. But it's not holding any water with me. Are you convinced, Trev?
No, and she went on with this for so long that suddenly now she has remorse. No, it's the old saying of, you're mad because you got caught, or you're sorry because you got caught.
And the whole I was brainwashed defense, how do you think that's going to hold up, considering there's lots of footage of the 6 prisoners, also known as 8 Passengers show from before?
Yep.
How's that going to hold up? I don't think it's going to. She obviously didn't practice her sad fishing face.
All of the terms of the agreement are stipulated, including that the court obtain a pre-sentence investigation report, correct?
Correct.
There won't be any argument about whether prison is the appropriate sentence, and there's an agreement about the 4 counts running consecutive.
That is correct.
All right. The court finds then that Ms. Franke's pleas are made knowingly and voluntarily. The court therefore accepts and enters those pleas. The court orders the preparation of a pre-sentence investigation report to be prepared by AP&P and the Department of Corrections. Counsel, what about sentencing on February 20th? I think, do you and your client agree to waive time, counsel?
We do agree to waive time, Your Honor.
February 20th, I believe, is a Tuesday. Is that right? – 10 a.m.?
That works for us, Your Honor.
All right. Anything else for today?
Your Honor, maybe, I've heard the court say this several times in a different fashion. We are not binding the court to any specific sentence, and the court retains its right to sentence as it sees fit. I just mentioned that this is not a Rule 11 plea, but although it's a stipulated statement of defendant.
Okay, this is really interesting, the way her attorney, old Slick Rick there, set this up. It's almost like he didn't even try. Doesn't bother me. I mean, we obviously know he didn't try to match his clothes before court. So a lot of times with a plea agreement, they've already decided on the sentence, and that's how you get the criminal to take the plea. Let me see right here. Rule 11, plea agreement is a binding plea agreement. It's an agreement entered in by the parties for a certain sentence if the defendant pleads guilty to a specific criminal charge. So he's saying this isn't a Rule 11 plea agreement, so she's still at the mercy of the court. Do you find that a little odd, Trev? He's not exactly a wheeler dealer there, is he?
No, but I think that's the only way they were going to get it done. I think with the nature of the facts of this case and seeing them, in in the documents, I believe that was the only way they would get a deal done. If not, you send both to trial. And so I think that the way that she was going to get a deal is by doing that and basically taking a chance on the court liking that she pled guilty instead of going to trial. But she's still at the mercy of the sentence. And that's why I said I think it's going to be a big, it's going to make a big difference on what she gives to the prosecution for the case against Jodi.
She's going to have to hand over more victims, in my opinion. Just that Jodi's crazy and took her on boat rides and helped her abuse the kids. Like I said, that's not going to cut the mustard. Madam Secretary Christina Lasker, who is also our next Meet the Moderator, said that's why she lost the 2 counts, in my opinion. I agree.
Yeah.
Seems to me that she was having some second thoughts during this, because look at her face. She's like, shit. They're not buying it. Shit. I don't think they believe me. What am I going to tell them about Jodi now? How am I going to tell them how horrible Jodi is?
Yeah, I don't think she had it in her to fight it. I don't think she had that in her. I think she just said I did it so she could stop the. I mean, she'll have prison to serve, but she could not have to go through all the steps of fighting this, a prelim, another hearing, all the small hearings, a trial. I don't think she's built for that.
Stephanie said, sorry, use initials. You can say whatever you want to say. I mean, the children's names are out there. I'm not putting pictures of them or anything up, but I mean, they've been all over the national news. I mean, everybody knows their name. I don't think they're watching this chat.
Well, the parents plastered their names first and their life on YouTube long before anybody else spoke about them. Take that up
all
with
over YouTube. Over 3 million subscribers.
You don't want the kids' names out there. Take that up with the woman in shackles.
There you go.
Council approach, please.
Now, if I was her family, a couple of them are seated behind her, I would have just waited for the evening news. I would not have been there for this. I would not want my face, my name associated with that thing anymore. Oh, what a lady. She doesn't even let her back touch the chair. She sits up. She's not a sloucher, is she, Trev? She keeps that 2 inches between her back and the chair. I bet she practiced a lot at home. I bet she walked around with books on her head. What a lady. What a lady. Are you impressed, Trev?
Oh, very.
Okay. All right, now we get to some very, very ugly things. I'm not going to go through all of it because it is disturbing, but we're going to have to bust it up and break it down.
With my deepest regret and sorrow for my family and my children, guilty.
Ruby Franke has pled guilty in court to the abuse of her own children. Her plea agreement goes into detail about what she did to her kids, and it is horrifying. Also, what does this mean for a potential sentence? We break it all down for you now. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Ruby Franke has officially pled guilty. This is a major development in a case that we have been following since August. This case out of Utah. Ruby Franke has pled guilty. Now, Ruby Franke is the former YouTuber who, alongside her husband, Kevin, created a now defunct channel on the platform called 8 Passengers. This was a very popular channel. It documented the lives of the couple along with their 6 children. It had over 2 million subscribers. But it didn't come without controversy. No, viewers took major issues with how Ruby was parenting, or maybe I should say disciplining her kids.
So in our house, when we
Okay, I want to talk about that for a second, because when you have internet strangers reaching out to you, attacking you, harassing you, whatever she wants to call it, saying you can't treat your kids that way. CPS says can take your kids. It's time to curtail that behavior. Against my better judgment, we spoke about Cam and Allie on Monday. And I said, look, they're in a bad place. It's sad, but they had ample opportunity to clean it up. People were reaching out to them left and right, saying something's going on there. Something's going on there. But when you have a narcissistic personality that it's like it's my way or the highway, it's extremely dangerous. Don't you think, Trev?
Yeah, and when it involves children, narcissism never goes well because you're putting yourself over whomever and everyone else.
take something away, it's because they have shown that they are not responsible enough to manage it. And so we don't just turn around and give it back as soon as they start acting good.
It has to be consistent.
It has to be consistent over a minimum of 6 months. I know that her teacher is uncomfortable with her being hungry and not having a lunch. And it would ease her discomfort if I came to the school with a lunch. But I responded and just said, Eve is responsible for making her lunches in the morning, and she actually told me she did pack a lunch. So the natural outcome is she's just going to need to be hungry.
Now, at one point, Ruby ended up partnering up with a woman named...
No. You call the school and you put money on her lunch account, or you do like me. I left work one time and picked up Sonic cheeseburgers, and took it up to the school when my son forgot his lunch. I didn't want him sitting there starving or worrying about what he was going to eat. Loser.
Jody Hildebrand, who is offering these life coaching services through an organization known as Connections. In fact, Ruby was listed as a certified mental fitness trainer on the Connections website. But in August, she and Hildebrand were each arrested and each charged with 6 counts of aggravated child abuse of Franke's 2 young children who were staying at Hildebrand's place. Her 12-year-old son managed to escape Hildebrand's home, ran to a neighbor who called 911.
911, the address of your emergency.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. We know there's been problems at this neighbor's house. He's emaciated, he's got tape around his legs, he's hungry, and he's thirsty.
Now, the boy was reportedly emaciated with wounds, and there was evidence that he'd been tied up. His then 9-year-old sister, we believe that she's 10 now, her Ruby's daughter, was reportedly found in the house in similar conditions. She was taken to the hospital to be treated for malnourishment. Ruby, Jody, they were each arrested. They were charged with 6 counts of aggravated child abuse.
To me, it seems like she had, I might be reading too much into it, a deep resentment for her daughter Eve. The son that escaped seemed to, well, she had a deep resentment for all of them. But did she think all the children were evil and possessed, or just Russ and Eve? Do we know? You're muted, Trev.
I don't know, but to think that about any of the children is quite disturbing.
Disgusting. And I can't imagine being a teacher who says, hey, your daughter forgot her lunch. You know, they don't know about food allergies or things like that. They have to make sure they're fed. Being told, let her starve, that would be a red flag. I don't care how popular their damn show was. To call CPS and say, you might want to check on this family. Because abuse comes in all shapes, socioeconomic levels. It comes in all forms.
Yeah, and I see a comment that says the kids were earning money, they should have had that lunch account. A parent's responsibility is to make sure that their children are taken care of, and that includes shelter, water, and food. Now, sometimes you cannot meet those needs, and then that's when you reach help for those needs. But if you can easily meet those needs as Ruby could, there is no excuse for not meeting those needs. And so I don't care if the kids were earning this, that, or the other. It's her responsibility and Kevin's responsibility to make sure they're fed.
You're right. And I mean, I'm looking at just a ballpark of their views from that channel times what YouTube pays for a view, which is not very much. So with their 3 million subscribers, or as we say around here, friends, I don't think any of these people were their friends. Let's say they got 1 million views in a month, which would be easy considering how many subscribers they had. That'd be roughly $40,000 that they would have gotten from Google AdSense. Reminds me of John and Kate plus 8 and the Duggars. Without the kids, there's no show, but the parents keep the money. That in itself is a CPS report.
Yeah, and for those wondering, everyone in Utah is a mandated reporter, especially
a teacher.
Yeah. Now, some people ran into an issue. Some people local ran into an issue when they called in the fact that the kids were left at home alone for long periods of time. There's a law put on the books that is designed to protect from like BS calls of parents who leave their kids home alone for a little while, or the kids walk short ways to school or something like that. And they cited that law as to why they couldn't investigate. Agency cited the free range parenting law, and that is not supposed to cover things like this. So I think that's one thing that needs to be addressed, because if there's a law in the books that's preventing this from being investigated, then that should be looked at, because you have to follow the law as an employee of the government.
I agree. I totally agree, because there are a lot of bogus calls that are made. There definitely are. Not gonna lie. But I will say this, it's in my opinion, it's better safe than sorry. You know, you get a call, then best you go check it out. Don't you think?
Yeah, and I don't really have a huge problem with the free range parenting law as long as you go beyond that and find what criteria meets that. It can't be as broad as just, well, if a kid's left home alone for too long, doesn't matter how long, we're just not going to investigate that because it falls under this law, because there could be signs by just that. And so I think you have to train all of your CPS employees, whatever their system is there. You have to train all of them and make sure that they know what they're looking for and what they're not looking for, and make sure the courts are aware, and make sure there's a line drawn so you don't miss cases, because you'd rather investigate two cases, find one BBS and one be substantiated, than investigate neither and leave that one unaddressed.
Exactly, because we know what happens. We see what happens every time. Do we not?
Yeah.
Because when the ball is dropped, children die or are so severely mentally scarred, they're not going to navigate through life productively.
No, the kids saved themselves here.
Yes, they did. Again, this is another reason why Dylan in the Idaho 4 case, she has no legs to stand on with me.
Understanding that each count could be a max of 15 years in prison. And by the way, Kevin ended up filing for divorce from Ruby. And according to his lawyer, he had been living separately from her for over a year before her arrest. Okay, so then right before the weekend started, we learned from Franke's law firm, Woodward Law, that Ruby was going to enter a plea on Monday, December 18th. There were apparently negotiations happening behind the scenes with the prosecutor's office. There was supposed to be a waiver hearing on December 18th. We had speculated, well, what could this be? A waiver hearing, of course, is where A defendant in Utah can waive a preliminary hearing, a hearing where prosecutor will present all their evidence to a judge to determine if there's enough evidence to go forward. A number of reasons why you'd want a waiver hearing. One of them is if you end up entering into a plea and you no longer need a trial. And what was particularly interesting in the statement that was released by her law firm in anticipation of this plea deal was who she was blaming. I'm going to highlight one interesting part. She says, quote, Ruby Franke is a devoted mother and is also a woman committed to constant improvement. Initially, Ms. Franke believed that Jody Hildebrandt had the insight to offer a path to continual improvement. Ms. Hildebrandt took advantage of this quest and twisted it into something heinous. Over an extended period, Ms. Hildebrandt systematically isolated Ruby Franke from her extended family, older children, and her husband, Kevin Franke. This prolonged isolation resulted in Ms. Franke being subjected to...
Okay, so we knew this was going to happen. We knew the blame game. Kevin already foreshadowed it because he blamed pretty much everything on Jody, even though his former in-laws had a lot of blame on him. So how do you isolate a grown woman with children away from their own family, their own husband? And what husband's going to stand for it? Any thoughts on that, Trav?
I agree. I concur with everything you said there. That's absolutely the way. And the finger pointing and the blaming is just sad because it's all at the expense of these children.
Oh, and don't get me wrong. Jody, she has a lot of splaining to do. A lot. I look at Stephanie's comment. She said, why are these adults listening to Jody? Exactly. And I agree with AD. I think the father went for divorce, so he has a better chance of getting the children back. I do too.
To a distorted sense of morality shaped by Miss Hildebrandt's influence. So really putting the blame in a way on Jody. Very, very interesting. Now, with all that in mind, let's get into what happened. Ruby Franke officially pled guilty in the 5th District Court in Washington County, Utah, in front of Judge John J. Walton. She pled guilty to 4 of the 6 charges, 4 counts of aggravated child abuse, each one a second-degree felony.
Ms. Franke, how do you plead to count 1, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
To count 3, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
To count 5, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
And to count 6, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
With my deepest regret and sorrow for my family and my children, guilty.
Now, 2 of the charges were dropped. Counts 2 and 4 in the original information. Remember, I said she was originally charged with 6 counts. Well, 2 were dropped. And these counts were about abuse of both of the kids, where the physical injuries resulted in starvation or failure to thrive or malnutrition that jeopardized the child's life. Now, I wonder if, since this was a plea deal, the prosecution just agreed to drop something, and maybe these 2 charges were duplicative of the other counts. Doesn't seem to me that they were tough to prove, as you will see in a minute. But either way, what Franke pled guilty to is incredibly serious, as you're about to hear. We all know how much these cases really emphasize how scary the world can be and how unsafe it can be. That's why I wanted to take a minute to talk about our sponsor of this video, Morgan & Morgan. They have just been, and in terms of price, these crimes. Okay, so it starts. From approximately May 22nd, 2023 until August 30th, 2023. So now we have a date range, 3 months of this abuse. In Washington County, Utah, the defendant, Ruby Franke, intentionally or knowingly inflicted and allowed another adult to inflict serious physical injuries upon her children that were ages 9 EF and 11 to 12 RF, as more fully described below. So she didn't just do it herself, but she seemingly allowed Jody to do it too. Now,
why would you allow anyone, unless it's like a grandparent or you know, a teacher, to punish your child? This is Jody. She's not an aunt. She's not an uncle. And I think parents should handle the punishment. Obviously, if the kids are spending that with grandma and grandpa, and they're trying to stick, pennies in the light socket, you would expect grandma and grandpa to put them in timeout or whatever. But why would you allow Jody to be over any punishment or have any say in your life? This is disgusting.
Now, again, it's important when you look at the ages here, seemingly 9 years old for the daughter, 11 to 12 for the son. Seems to me like this might have happened before and through his own birthday. Let's get into it. Count one is the longest. And I warn you right now, this is incredibly difficult to hear. And count one is aggravated child abuse of RF, her 11, 12-year-old son. And it's about physical injury that includes physical torture. This is what it says. Count one. The defendant's actions involve the physical torture of RF. Initially, RF was forced to do physical tasks for hours and days at a time. These included wall sits, carrying boxes full of books up and down stairs, and working outside. Eventually, RF was forced to do outside labor without shoes. And
he had horrible, horrible sunburns. Now, what is a wall sit? Is that where he can't sit down and he just has to lean against the wall and he can't move? What is a wall sit? Obviously, on my computer, I can look it up real quick, but I got Trev here.
A wall sit is basically what it sounds like. You're sitting on the wall like you're in a chair, but there's no chair.
What?
So, like, think about you sitting in a chair that's against the wall, then somebody pulls the chair out, and you have to keep yourself in that position.
Huh. Okay, I'm looking at it right now. Okay, they use that a lot when people are working out, to strengthen core muscles and stuff. But in this case, it's called abuse. Abuse. And I tell you what, some of those sunburns could have killed him.
And in the summer heat, he was forced to stand in the direct sunlight for several days. He was forced to remain outside at all hours of the day and night for extended periods of time. These actions resulted in repeated and serious sunburns with blistered and sloughing skin. RF was denied adequate water for several of the days he was required to remain in the summer heat, and he was punished when he secretly consumed water. He was denied sufficient food, and when given food, he was given very plain meals, example, rice and chicken, while others in the house ate regular and more flavorful meals. He was isolated from other people and denied all forms of entertainment, including books, notebooks, and electronics. In addition, after RF attempted to run away in July, his hands and feet were regularly bound. Binding included being tied to the defendant and to weights. Many times, the binding included using 2 sets of handcuffs, one on RF's wrists and one on his ankles. Again, very consistent with what we've heard so far about his.
No denying that. No denying that, because I don't believe for a minute Ruby or Jody gave this information over. I believe that through forensic child psychologists, they got this information from Russ, from Eve, and we know the other children have spoken.
His injuries. At times, with RF lying on his stomach, ropes were used to tie the 2 sets of handcuffs together so that his arms and lower legs were lifted off the ground. The bindings resulted in injuries to RF's wrists and ankles, where the handcuffs cut through the skin and damaged the muscle tissue. These injuries were treated with homeopathic remedies and covered with duct tape. That's when we heard about the cayenne pepper being used. Then the bindings were placed on top of the duct tape, as if.
Can you imagine having those open sores? And instead of, which he shouldn't have had them in the first place, but instead of some Neosporin and some bandages, we use cayenne pepper and duct tape. You know how painful that would be?
If that wasn't horrifying enough, it goes on to say, again, all part of count one, physical torture. Specific instances of abuse committed by the defendant include 1, kicking RF while wearing boots, 2, holding his head underwater, and 3, cutting off oxygen by placing her hands over his mouth and nose.
Yeah, he was on the way to being murdered. He was on the way to being murdered. By the grace of God, he escaped for a second time and got help. Imagine had that man not been home that day. Imagine how it had been someone that just minds their own business and says, go back home, I'm not getting involved. You know that stuff happens.
I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to lie to you, that is actually worse than what I thought we were dealing with. I didn't know any of that. I don't think any of us really knew any of that. You know, it seems to me one of the reasons the starvation charges were dropped is because it was duplicative of this conduct. You might not have needed that after everything we just heard. And it does make me wonder if that account, everything that we just heard, was not only determined from the physical evidence, the physical examinations of the kids, what the kids ended up saying to law enforcement and medical professionals, but maybe Ruby Franke herself, what she admitted to doing. I mean, again, this is her admitting to what she did personally and what she allowed to happen. We're going to talk about punishment a little later, but just keep all that in mind, that description. And keep in mind, too, when we talk about her putting the blame on Jody, there's the second count, which actually was count 3 in the original information document, but this is the second count that she's pleading guilty to. And this count is about aggravated child abuse on RF, her son, but it's about physical injury causing emotional harm. Count 2. The actions described above caused severe emotional harm to RF due to the fact that they began in May and escalated through the summer months. Fairly understandable. Additionally, the defendant and another adult, presumably Jody, regularly sought to indoctrinate RF and convince him that he was evil and possessed, and that he needed to willingly be obedient to avoid punishments, and that the punishments were necessary to repent.
All right, these bitches. I cannot believe this. These beautiful little children. Beautiful little children. All they want, food, playtime, friends at school. It's hard enough just to go to school. And they're subjected to this? So what came first, the chicken or the egg? Was it Ruby's idea to tell them they were evil and possessed, or was it Jody's? What do you guys think? Let's take a poll. Let's ask Trev. He's in the hot seat. Trevor's muted again.
Sorry, say that again.
Who do you think came up with this to convince them that they're evil and possessed? He needed to willingly be obedient to avoid punishments, and that the punishments were necessary for him to repent. He was also told that everything that was being done to him were acts of love. We heard Jody talk about love in one of her insane podcasts. Connie says both.
Yeah, I would agree.
He was also told that everything that was being done to him were acts of love. Yeah. That level of manipulation, that again is so consistent with what we've heard about from alleged victims of Jody Hildebrandt, including her niece, Jessie, who we interviewed in October.
So she strips you of identity, she strips you of credibility, and she isolates. And so she's saying everything that you say is a lie. Everything that you say is manipulation. You're manipulating everyone around you. You're lying and destroying everyone's life. And she would tell me all the time, if you just confess, I will stop. You confess, I will stop, which is torture.
Again, it's almost verbatim to what this description was about what these kids had to endure. And I said kids because now let's move on to the third count. We talked about the son. Now let's talk about the daughter. So this was the third count that Ruby is pleading guilty to, but this was actually count 5 in the original information. And this is about the abuse of EF, Ruby's then 9-year-old daughter. And this is injury resulting in emotional harm. Count 3. The defendant's actions also caused severe emotional harm to EF. Other than binding and the specific instances of abuse RF was subjected to, EF was subjected to the same treatment as her brother. She was isolated and forced to do the physical tasks, remain outside, and denied food and water. She was also repeatedly told she was evil and possessed. The punishments were necessary for her to be obedient and to repent, and these things were being done to her in order to help her. EF was convinced that she was evil and needed to go through these things in order to repent. Can we just understand for a minute what these kids psychologically now have to go through to not accept what happened to them? I mean, that is a clear example of what we've talked about with other victims of abuse, that they think they did something wrong. Think about what these kids went through. Let's go to the fourth count. Again, this is the last count that Ruby Franke pled guilty to. This is actually number 6 in the original information. And this was about abuse of EF that constituted physical injury that includes multiple injuries. Count 4. The defendant's actions caused 2 or more physical injuries to EF. She was forced to work outside in the heat barefoot. She was also forced to run barefoot on dirt roads for an extended period of time. Remember, this was during the summer. EF's feet were repeatedly injured by, and she was repeatedly sunburned. When examined on August 30th, these wounds were apparent by scabs, blisters, and sloughing skin. I don't know if there's even more I have to say here, but so what we have here is repeated physical abuse and injuries, not isolated incidents. They both suffered. They both suffered tremendously. It is horrifying stuff, which leads me to an important part of this plea agreement document. So as part of this deal, Ruby Franke agrees to give up her constitutional rights, the rights to a jury trial, to call witnesses, to testify at her trial, to appeal. But now let's get into the consequences for entering a plea. Now, there's nothing in here that prosecutors and attorneys worked out regarding a determined sentence, like, and in light of this, you're now we agree to 6 months in prison. No. Instead, let me read this to you. I know the maximum sentence that may be imposed for each crime to which I am pleading guilty. I know that by pleading guilty to a crime that carries a mandatory penalty, I will be subjecting myself to serving a mandatory penalty for that crime. I know my sentence may include a prison term, fine, or both. I know that in addition to a 90% surcharge will be imposed, I also know that I may be ordered to make restitution to any victims of my crimes, including any restitution that may be owed on charges that are dismissed as part of a plea agreement. I know that if there is more than one crime involved, the sentences may be imposed one after another consecutively, or they may run at the same time concurrently. So it is up to the judge what the sentence will be. And theoretically, it could be the maximum of 15 years in prison on each to run consecutively, one after the other. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, but in light of what she pled guilty to and what she admitted, my opinion, there is no way she isn't getting prison time in my mind. No way. This is horrific conduct. And as much as she puts the blame on Jody, she admitted to directly engaging in this behavior and allowing this to happen to her kids. And for a prolonged period of time, 3 months in the hot summer. In fact, let me add this too. It says in this agreement, quote, the defendant agrees to serve a prison term, and the sentences for each count are to be served consecutive to each other. It seems to me that is something we may see. So even if it is 1 year in prison, that's a minimum of 4 years in prison. Theoretically, that's what we could be looking at. She could be looking at more. I'm just reading the tea leaves from this agreement. We will wait to see what happens. But I do want to move on to another big point in this plea agreement. The defendant agrees to testify.
Okay, before we get to that, because we already knew she was going to jump ship and that she was going to turn on Jody and testify against her. We didn't even have to be told. Didn't even have to be told. We knew that was going to happen. We already knew. It always happens that way. First to talk is the first to walk. I'm going to agree with old Jesse there. I don't believe she's going to wind up getting the 60 years. I've been wrong before. Don't hold me to it. It just seems like the powers that be, all the way up, they spend more time, especially with crimes against children, keeping these people out of jail than keeping them in. What do you think's going to happen, Trev?
Yeah, I agree. I think she should get the full max, but I think her taking this plea deal virtually guarantees that she won't see the max. That's not listed in there, so I'm not saying that's a fact, but they do take into account if you plea, especially early. And I think that she kind of had an idea that was going to be the way that it's going to happen, or she wouldn't have pled. And so I think she'll get less than the max. Well, I think she should get the max.
I think she should get the max too. But I think between now and February 20th, there's going to be quite a few meetings, and she's going to have to come up with some very damning things on Jody, because they're going to have to investigate. She can't just say it. They're going to have to find out if it's true. Wicklow, beautiful picture, said proof that happy family photos can lie. 100%. And I have argued this till I'm blue in the face. We still hear it in the Summer Wells case. People saying, well, it looks like they had plenty of presents on Christmas. And it looks like Candace took the kids to do stuff all the time. They look happy to me. They just live in the country. That's why they look so dirty. No. No.
Truthfully against Jody Hildebrand. And in return, the Washington County Attorney's Office agrees to remain neutral regarding future hearings before the Utah Board of Pardons and Parole. So, in other words, she will be a state's witness. She will testify against Jody Hildebrand. In exchange, the prosecution will not seek to keep her in prison at a later parole hearing. That's what we were expecting to hear. That is a very, very big deal, because you would want to give Ruby Franke a plea deal. And I imagine that's maybe why they dropped 2 of these counts. You want her to be the state's star witness against her co-defendant, Jody Hildebrand. So you drop 2 charges, maybe secure some sort of lenient sentence. That puts pressure on Jody, though, to maybe take a deal, too. Having Ruby testify against you is not great. And it also seems that you would want Ruby to testify so as maybe to not have the kids be forced to testify about what they endured. You always want to avoid minor witnesses testifying if you can. That is extremely painful for them. And from a credibility point of view, those who suffer abuse at such a young age, it can make it very difficult to remember certain details. So having Ruby be your star witness makes sense. Now, I will say, could this help Jody Hildebrand? Will she want to fight this? Could she say, hey, Ruby just admitted to everything she did. I had no part in this. It's going to be very, very hard to argue that, given what we have just read and the evidence in this case so far.
That was my exact thoughts. Could you imagine the shits it would be if somehow this worked in crazy Jody's favor? She takes this to trial and says, look, she's the mom. I was just her friend. Go ahead, have the kids testify against me. It only takes one, and we know she is a cult leader. We know she is manipulative. She is a narcissist, and she would have no issue taking the stand in her own defense from what we know about her personality. Could you just imagine? Because it's going to come down to her word against Ruby's unless the children testify. We've seen stranger things happen.
Yep.
Do you think that's likely?
I'm not sure if it's likely, but that'll be their shot. That'll be their angle. Excuse me, Jody's team. That'll be their angle. Is being like, well, the star witness against me is the mother of these children who should have protected them and who perpetrated this abuse. And they'll poke holes in her story by saying that, she's responsible for this and it's her responsibility for her to protect her children. And now that she's accepted a plea, now that they've accepted the plea deal, her charges, she's off the table. Can't go and be like, well, we're going to charge her with this now. This case right here has been she pled guilty in.
Yeah, she's already admitted it. So what are you doing? She's admitted it.
So they'll push that, yeah.
That's something to think about. Now, there's a part that Ruby can withdraw the plea before the sentence. Her sentencing is set for February 20th. We will make sure to cover that here on Sidebar. But as for Jody Hildebrand, she has a waiver hearing scheduled for December 27th. Will she plead guilty? Will that hearing be delayed? Will she merely waive her right to a preliminary hearing? We shall see. The game has changed, though, now that Ruby did this. And by the way, here was the prosecutor, Eric Clark, after the hearing where they held a presser talking about this.
This morning, Ruby Franke pleaded guilty to 4 counts of aggravated child abuse. She will remain incarcerated awaiting sentencing, which will occur, and the date was February 20th, I believe. We are pleased that Mrs. Franke has accepted responsibility for criminal actions and that justice is being served to the extent possible in this type of a situation. We're grateful for the law enforcement officers, caseworkers, Children's Justice Center staff, and others that have been instrumental in the fair and speedy resolution of this case. Because the alleged facts of the ongoing case involving Jody Hildebrand are intertwined with this case, our office will not be making additional statements to the media at this time.
Definitely a win for the prosecution. And there you have it. Ruby Franke has pled guilty. She will be sentenced, and we will see what happens next.
Yes, we will. And now I'm extra curious because the 27th is next Wednesday. This month's gone. I mean, Christmas is just a few sleeps away. So next Wednesday, what is she going to do?
Yeah, and I agree. I think that was a win for the prosecution because she had a very, not a very detailed plea deal. There wasn't much that was bound. She doesn't have a certain sentence or really anything, and she agreed to serve a prison sentence, as well as did not agree to a certain sentence. So they, in theory, if they wanted to, could throw 60 years at her, or anything in between 4 and 60. So I mean, I think that's a win for them. They don't have to prove this in trial, and it can still be thrown at her however the court decides to.
Absolutely. V. Oakley said, wondering if at sentencing, will they do victim impact statements? On one hand, I hope they do. But on the other hand, I hope they don't, because I think the children, it goes without saying, have been through enough. And here we are. Her family spoke out after all of this, and they said they're heartbroken. They're heartbroken. Too little, too late. I wouldn't speak on this. I wouldn't be on the news. Nothing. I would hunker down and as a family figure out how we're going to take care of grandchildren, nieces, nephews, and go forward. It's yet another pity party where we forget about the actual victims and we're almost sympathizing with the abuser. In this case, Ruby.
The very latest information surrounding a high-profile Utah court case.
Yeah, just a day after popular YouTuber Ruby Franke pleaded guilty to child abuse charges, one of her family members is sharing her thoughts. Ryan Schnee on the live desk for us after speaking with a member of Ruby Franke's family today.
Mark and Heidi, good evening. I've reached out to a number of Ruby Franke's closest family members after giving them some space at the courthouse yesterday to process what took place. I heard from Ruby's sister-in-law. Part of the statement shared with me from Jennifer Franke reads, yesterday was a very hard day for my husband and I. We were a mixed bag of emotions as we watched our sister-in-law, Ruby Franke, stand before the court to plead guilty to what happened to her children. Aaron and I are absolutely heart.
To what happened to her children. Bad choice of words. You see, this didn't just happen to the children. You see, they weren't playing in the tree and the branch broke and they fell and broke their arm. This didn't just happen. You see, they were part of systematic emotional and physical abuse. Some would call it torture.
Yeah, and these people are maintaining her innocence after she literally did quite the opposite and maintained her guilt. She went up and pled guilty. And so it's just ironic that they're sitting here maintaining her innocence when she did quite the opposite in front of a judge.
Yep, Sammy Sparrow said it's distancing language. I got distancing language for you. You and Aaron, Jennifer and Aaron, Frankie, just STFU. Shut up. We hope that those children, more distancing, will know they are not alone.
Heartbroken at what we know happened to the children. We hope that those children will know that they are not alone. And while sorry isn't enough for all you've been through, you do have family close by who love you and know that none of what happened to you was your fault.
Okay, that's better. She kind of saved it at the end by saying, none of what happened to you, which again, I don't like that choice of words. I understand emotions are high. I don't like that. What happened to you? I don't like that. To me, it is diminishing what they have gone through. What happened to you? That's like me bumping my head on the cabinet. That happened. Somebody who takes your rights and abuses you, that doesn't just happen. Am I reading too much into that, Trev?
No, I mean, this is very sad language for them to. They had a chance, knowing this would be, aired all over the place, to say the right things for those children, and they did quite the opposite. And they don't seem to be very supportive of the kids, and quite frankly, seem to be narcissistic in a way themselves.
I agree. You took the words out of my mouth.
You can read the full statement on our website right now, KUTV.com, and see all of our coverage from yesterday's hearing on our KUTV2 News YouTube channel. On the live desk tonight, I'm Brian Schnee.
Yeah, I think I'll skip that. I'm not going to read their whole statement. I didn't like how it was phrased. Gave me the willies, the way they said it. I didn't like that. Sammy Sparrow said, this was all played out publicly. How could they not have been aware? Again, you took the words out of my mouth. They knew that they had a very, very, very popular YouTube channel. They obviously know how to read. I'm assuming they have pretty good reading comprehension. So when they see comment after comment after comment after comment saying, you guys don't deserve to have your kids, you guys are abusive, I'm calling CPS. It would have been a good idea then to step in, as opposed to write some watered down statement after it's put out there for the whole world to see how bad the abuse was.
Yeah, and you can't tell me they never saw those kids. So they failed to report, which is not only completely disgusting, is also illegal. And they should just be glad that they're not facing time. It's a Class B misdemeanor to fail to report, and you can get up to 6 months in prison in Utah for it. So they should probably be glad that the prosecution's not knocking at their door instead of sitting here taking up for the person who just pled guilty. But that's just my opinion.
And I agree with your opinion 100%. And I'm going back to what you said earlier about the trauma bond. And we have to consider the ages of the children, 12 and 9. And even though there is extreme trauma going on, they still love their mother. And so for Russ to escape and save himself and save his siblings, knowing he asked for the police, he's a smart kid, knowing that his mother could possibly go to jail. Who cares about Jody? He don't give a shit about Jody. Even his father. That probably didn't cross his mind, but something's going to go down. So that is crazy. Let's look at this about trauma bonds. Some of it relates to this case and some does not. Wherever you want me to pause it, let me know, Trev.
Hi Psych2Goers, and welcome back to another video. Thank you so much for all the love and support you've given us. Here at Psych2Go, our mission is to make content on mental health and self-help more accessible to everyone. Now let's continue. Have you ever heard of the term trauma bond? According to Dr. Patrick Carnes, a trauma bond is defined as dysfunctional attachments that occur in the presence of danger, shame, or
I would say that fits. I know for well over 2 years, people have been saying, why aren't Summer Wells brothers talking? It could be this very thing. Dysfunctional attachments that occur in the presence of danger, shame, or exploitation.
Exploitation. This is the most common in narcissistic relationships. Remember though, while it is common, these relationships do not have to be romantic. With that being said, here are 6 signs of a trauma bond. 1. Your relationship is unpredictable. Do you feel yourself constantly walking on eggshells? Are you scared to interact with them because you don't know how you'll be treated? This may indicate a trauma bond. One of the difficult aspects of a trauma bond is that their attitude towards you can change on a daily basis. This can make it seem like the abuse is triggered by a bad day or by something you did. The thing to pay attention to here is repeated cycles of abuse. While everyone is certainly allowed to have bad days, it is dangerous to use them to excuse abusive behavior. The unpredictability is a sign of a trauma bond because the good days can be rewarding and strengthen the affection you feel towards them. 2. They constantly betray you, but you still give them another chance. Do you often repeatedly betray yourself to get love and approval from someone? Do they regain trust in you, either by excuses, explanations, and apologies, even though they've broken their promises so many times?
And in this case, they were telling the children they need to repent because they're evil and possessed. As if that's not going to screw you up. I couldn't imagine if somebody was saying that to me at 12 years old or 9 years old. It is absolutely amazing that that little boy had the strength to escape and say, call the police.
Yeah. But we know exactly why they pulled the whole, you're possessed, you're evil type thing, because it creates a beyond mortal dependency. It's easier to process things that we can see. But when you think of something beyond that, things are difficult to process. And when you tell someone that they're evil or possessed, that's not something they can see in front of them. You can't tell them that they're short or they're tall or whatever. They can see that. But if you bring something that they can't process, then you create that dependency where they have to ask questions and they have to just believe what you say about them being evil because, well, they can't prove you wrong because they can't see evil. It's something that you're saying is inside of them.
Exactly. And a child would be scared of that. I think about when Lori Vallow was on the phone talking about Tylee becoming a zombie. And she said, oh, no, not me, Mom. Not me. Because Tylee knew what Lori would do with a zombie.
If so, this could be evidence of a trauma bond. And this can leave you feeling worthless, helpless, stressed, anxious, and more. The reason betrayals can impact you so much is because they are most often by people you trust and love. To want to trust them, give them chances, and continue loving them is understandable. But when the trust becomes blind and destructive, the relationship is no longer healthy. 3. You feel responsible for their happiness. Are you willing to sacrifice anything to make your relationship work? Do you squash your own will and desire just to keep them satisfied? You work so hard to find a reason to stay to the point where your sense of self may go out the window. If you can relate to this, have you ever wondered why you may do so? Well, the cycles of abuse in trauma bonding also include reoccurring periods of reward. You hold on to the good times of the relationship in order to justify your relationship. As a result, you lose yourself trying to please them in order to extend this pleasant period as much as you can. You may forego your own values or avoid speaking your mind. You prioritize their needs over everything to a point of feeling burnt out. 4. Your relationship is complex and involves false promises. I promise things will change, or this will never happen again. Do these statements sound familiar? False promises often strengthen a trauma bond. In fact, they are so powerful that they convince you to stay by creating a feeling of hope to cling to. If you are in a trauma bond, you are inclined to believe these words because ultimately you are emotionally attached to the other person. Your belief in them comes from a place of hope and desperation, even if logic tells you that you will just be left hurting again. 5. You defend your relationship even though it's abusive. Is it difficult for you to acknowledge the toxicity in your relationship that others are trying to show you? Do you think others just don't understand your relationship? When you're in a trauma bond, it's common to deny the facts that your situation is abusive and traumatic. Think of it as a defense mechanism. You feel so tied down to your relationship, you're unable to leave it, or you keep going back to the same person. It can be shameful to accept the fact that you are putting yourself in a destructive situation, so you may turn to denial. In other words, this acceptance may bring about feelings of inadequacy or weakness. 6. The sense of familiarity makes it impossible to leave the relationship. Why don't you...
Okay.
On that last one, that's a huge part that goes along with it as well, is that you have that inadequacy. So you basically make somebody, feel subhuman. And so they've made their children feel as if they're less than, and they have to endure these things because they deserve it or because they're less than. And I think that's a huge part of it, because if you have someone on your level, then it's hard to convince them to do this, that, and the other. But if you bring somebody down, I don't mean like as a peer level. Yes, there's a level between a parent and child, but they're still human, and you treat your child as a human. But they subhumanize their child to children to the point that they were able to basically convince them that everything they said is right and everything the kids do is wrong.
You're exactly right. And a good way to make someone feel subhuman, besides the normal insults, which are horrible enough, is to deprive them of food, water, and isolation. Isolation is horrible. These children were isolated. No TV, notebooks, games to play, nothing like that. And I agree with Micah. She said this is just so much deeper than Ruby and Jody. I agree. I agree. I think this investigation should not shut down once they take care of Ruby and Jody. I 100% agree.
Would you just leave? This is a complex question for someone in a trauma bond to answer, and there are multiple reasons why. A sign of a trauma bond is missing this person incessantly, almost like an addiction. Even after trying to break it off, you may miss having the other person in your life so much that it can impact you emotionally and physically. In order to avoid this debilitating feeling, you may feel like you have no choice but to stay. It might also be hard for you to leave because it is hard for you to recognize your own situation. The combination of emotional attachment, blind trust, manipulation, and denial can make you unaware of how destructive your situation really is, making the prospect of leaving feels wrong or unnecessary. If you know someone in a trauma bond, it is important to remain empathetic and understanding, because the fact that they don't see what you do is absolutely not their fault. If you find yourself in such a situation, know that you are not alone and that there are resources to help you heal.
Horrible. Horrible.
Yeah,
it can be boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, partner and partner. I don't know all the politically correct terms. Mainly it's child and parent.
Yeah, and it's the equivalent to burning down someone's house, but then saving them from it. And it's so then you are inflicting the bad, but then at the end you're the quote unquote hero in their eyes. And so that's how you keep perpetrating the abuse. I mean, if you only did negative things to the children, they would know that you're just doing negative things to them. But if you balance it, in your eyes, balance it, it's a sick thing to do. But that's how sometimes good things are part of abuse, because you do bad, but then you wrap it up with good. You put a Band-Aid on the injury you created, and then you look like the good guy, you look like the hero. And that's how it keeps going on and on. That's how it cycles.
Well, and like in this case, think about, the horrible sunburns. And that's dangerous. And, here, I'm going to make it feel better. I'm going to put something on it. Look, doesn't that feel better? And they're like, oh, they're being nice to me now. Like they said in that video. And I love that channel. It's called Psych to Go. If somebody can put that link in there. And so they said it's a cycle of abuse. Today I'm nice. Tomorrow I'm not. And they're always on eggshells. That's something Jennifer Turpin talked about. Is it going to be a good day? Is it going to be a bad day? That's a horrible way for anyone to live. Horrible. I'm just so glad you brought up that trauma bond thing, because I just have been thinking about just how brave he was, instead of just to sit there and endure the abuse, because he knows he's going to be fed at some time. He knows his mom's going to be nice sometime, but to say whatever and to escape. I think had he been caught, I think somebody would have killed him. And I think it probably would have been Ruby. That's just my opinion.
It definitely keeps escalating. That's why it's important that it gets shut down. And that's why I'm glad that he was able to have that bravery to ask for help and to seek that, because that probably saved their life. And at minimum, save them from what they never deserved to live through, which is the life that their parents put them through.
Yeah. And Kevin's in that boat too. I hate to tell Ruby, I understand, you're not charged with murder because nobody was murdered, but you are in a club of moms you don't ever want to be in. Look at this video. Evil asses. And they all have that same, those dark eyes, and they're staring down the camera like, try me.
Yeah. And it's just an insane mindset. It's like if you go adopt a dog and you kick it every day, but then you feed it dinner, does not make you a good dog owner. And that's what these parents are doing, is they're, perpetrating all of this abuse. But then at the end of the day, well, I'm the one who gives you food, or, I'm letting you sleep in my house. I'm a good mom. No.
Horrible. Horrible. Here I am doing positive reinforcement with my cat, and they're using duct tape and cayenne pepper to treat wounds they inflicted. Honey Elder said, Psych2Go is great, very helpful resource. Well, and so are all of you. I want to do a big round of applause to our friend Trev for coming up with some amazing points. Trev, you were extra genius today. Thank you so much, Trevor, for everything that you put into, well, not just this case, but every case you cover. If you are not subscribed to Trev Time, I suggest you get in there, because Trev, now I've got to catch up on one of your shows, but Trev has a great platform.
Thank you. And thanks for having me up today. Child psych is something that I've spent a lot of time researching and continue to research, and definitely something that I'd love to learn more about. So that's why these kind of cases I really hone in on, because I can understand some of the, the excuses they make, the actual psychology behind it. It's interesting to see all of that.
It is, because that small video right there after you brought up the trauma bond blew my mind. And a lot of people in here were saying, oh my God, this hits home, because I've been through it. I've been through it. Lily said, I don't know if anyone caught Trev's live last night, but it was a great one. He puts in the work too. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. He's a great friend. Have you tried your Oklahoma barbecue sauce yet?
I have not, but we are going to this week.
You're going to like it. You're going to be calling all the time going, where do I get more Okie Bows?
I'm very excited.
You guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you for being here and having great comments. Of course, we always, we keep it as light as we can possibly keep it, considering the subjects we talk about. But we're all good friends here. We're all adults, and we get through some of the most horrific things that the devil has shit out onto this earth. Again, have a great rest of your hump day. Put your pink on. Anybody need anything pink? Here you go. That is the official CLL t-shirt. Send me an email. I'll get you hooked up. And be well, be blessed, and thank you, as always, for being the best chat and best community on YouTube.